today?
I haven't picked it up yet. I'm a bit behind, so I apologise. Usually
That's okay.
catch up on those in bed.
I understand. You've been a tad busy.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. We're live, but we can't start the meeting yet. We're having technical difficulties with the computer setup that's over here. Just give us 1 second.
Okay, I will not bang this then.
Thank you.
Give me the thumbs up when you're ready.
Yeah, you're there. You're on.
Turn it up.
When I get a chance.
Okay, that's fine. I did not told you 3 days ago.
Okay, everybody look up and down like the Brady Bunch.
I think we're the monkeys.
I was really trying, Gavin. Oh wait, I can look down at you.
Yep.
Got it?
I'm not doing it great.
I know. Where's Masha when you need her?
We'll get Fred in the middle in a minute. He can be Alice.
Okay, we're ready. Everybody.
Okay, ready to go? The virtual regular meeting of the Annapolis City Council on Monday, May 11th will be called to order at 7:02 p.m. Alderman Paone, are you online?
He's coming up
Do
right
we have an
now.
audio?
That's not him.
Audio for Alderman Paone? He
Alderman.
is doing the invocation. Anybody else like to put a hand up for an invocation?
I guess I'm next. I was a Girl Scout, so I am prepared.
Okay. At this time, would everyone please observe the invocation given by Alderwoman Pendell Charles.
May we bow our heads. Prayer for our country. Almighty God, who has given us this good land for our heritage, we humbly beseech thee that we may always prove ourselves a people mindful of any favor and glad to do thy will. Bless our land with honorable industry, sound learning, and pure manners. Save us from violence, discord, and confusion, from pride and arrogance, and from every evil way. Defend our liberties and fashion into one united people, the multitudes brought hither out of many kindreds and tongues. Endue with the spirit of wisdom those to whom in thy name we entrust the authority of government, that there may be justice and peace at home, and that through obedience to thy law, we may show forth thy praise among the nations of the earth. In the time of prosperity, fill our hearts with thankfulness, and in the day of trouble, suffer not our trust in thee to fail, all of which we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. Now please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I've got some flags in front of me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to
the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think we need to sign the pledge to one alder person.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley?
Yes.
Alderwoman Tierney?
Aye. Here.
Alderman Paone?
Here.
Alderwoman Pendell Charles?
Here.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Present.
Alderman Rodriguez.
Present.
Alderman Gay. Alderman Savage.
Present.
Alderman Arnett.
Present.
Alderman Gay. Okay.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the first item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
This time I entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Motion from Alderman Finlayson. For a second.
Second.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Sure. Mayor Buckley.
Aye.
Alderman Payon.
Aye.
Alderman Pendle Charles.
Aye.
Alderman Finlayson.
Aye.
Alderman Rodriguez.
Aye.
Alderman Savage.
Aye.
I'm sorry, Alderman Gay.
Sorry, but aye.
Alderman Arnett.
Aye.
The roll call's been completed. Oh, Alderwoman Tierney, I'm sorry.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, now the roll call's been completed. Thank you.
Got to be tricky, right, Regina? Because everybody moves around, right? Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is petitions, reports, and communications, starting with updates from the mayor.
So good evening, everyone. We are entering a third month of the stay-at-home order from Governor Hogan due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We know this is a very difficult thing. Unemployment is at an all-time high. Hundreds of businesses are shuttered across the city. Our most basic needs are stressed: food, the ability to pay rent, the ability to recreate, to send our children to school. I want residents of Annapolis to know that we understand how difficult this is, and we are working on all fronts to not only deliver regular city services, but step up our ability to partner with county, state, and federal partners, as well as businesses and non-profits, to find resources and to provide necessities to the people of our city. We have been having food giveaways in partnership with Pastor Cheryl Menendez and the Light of the World Ministries. While these have been very successful, it is heartbreaking that each of these events run out of food before the last person is able to be served. I want to offer a few additional food resources for anyone who may be watching. First, if you have children ages 2 to 18, you can get 3 meals plus a snack through Anne Arundel County Public Schools. These grab-and-go meal sites are at 54 locations in the county. Please check the school's website or use the COVID-19 resource page on the city website to find location and times, or call the Family Services line at 410-222-5501. Second, the Anne Arundel County Food Bank and the Maryland Food Bank. Visit their websites to find locations of food giveaways, pantries, and soup kitchens. And third, if you are collecting unemployment, or if you have a child who was previously eligible for free and reduced meals at school, you are now eligible for Food Supplement Program, also known as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. This was previously called food stamps. Please contact Maryland Department of Human Services to apply online. Fourth, Feed Anne Arundel is offering free meals at locations around the city. Please check their Facebook page. There are meals provided by restaurants. It supports not only keeping restaurant workers employed, but helping feed the hungry. Next, we have tremendous partners in the Anne Arundel County Department of Health. You may have read in today's paper that the city is receiving 25% of the COVID-19 tests. Over the past 4 weeks, we have brought pop-up testing to neighbourhoods that may have a difficult time getting to the Department of Health testing sites in Glen Burnie or on Truman Parkway in Annapolis. These testing sites at Parole Community Health, Morris Blum, Harbour House, and Eastport Terrace, and earlier today, Tyler Elementary School, have been great for our community. At each of these locations, the total number of tests assigned to us have been fully utilized. We will ask for this to continue, but testing resources continue to be strained. But we will keep pushing. We will also push for data. We want to know how many people in Annapolis, how many cases there are in Annapolis, if there are any clusters or outbreaks in the city. Dr. Kalyana Raman is being as transparent as possible while maintaining health privacy protection. I want to talk about this I also want to talk about the Small Business Recovery Task Force. This group, co-chaired by Stephen Rice, our city manager of Office of Economic Development, and Dick Franyo, the owner of the Boatyard Bar and Grill. They've been doing an amazing job in the few short weeks of their existence. They started off by hosting a webinar with an expert consultant for area businesses to alert them to potential federal and state grant and loan programs. Co-chair, Franyo generously funded these expenses for the business owners in our city who were rightfully confused by all of this. This consultant helped them sort out what they qualified for, what they should apply for, what had to be paid back, and how to navigate the state, federal, and banking application process. The next phase has been to hold industry-specific working calls. These calls give business owners the state of play and provide an opportunity to share best practices for reopening. So far, restaurants, lodging have held one of these calls, participants in an idea on what to expect when reopening. For example, on the restaurant calls, owners were told what to expect in terms of capacity, conditions, and timing for reopening, and ideas for the reopening rollout. On the lodging calls, participants learned a little bit of everything, from how to deal with specific housekeeping issues to physical distancing requirements in both hotels and inns. Other industry-specific calls are being scheduled for retail, fitness, health, beauty, and others. Thank you to Alderwoman Sheila Finlayson for her active engagement in and with the task force. If you would like to participate, there is no cost for you or your business. Please reach out to Stephen Rice at smrice@annapolis.gov to be added to the emailing list. We want people to know that not only will Annapolis re-emerge from this crisis, but the city is a partner in the future success of your business. The last thing is that we encourage all residents and visitors to our city to be mindful of what is the best practice for keeping yourself, your friends, family, and your community safe. Please practice physical distancing. Stay 6 feet apart from people. If you go somewhere and it is full of people, find somewhere else to go. We are getting this guidance from the data, the science, and the doctors. Please follow it and don't rely on the police force to enforce behaviors that will help all of us get to the other side of this pandemic as quickly as possible. The city has 9 parks with hike and bike trails and more than a dozen park locations with sitting benches and water views. It is important to the safety of your family and to the others you encounter to follow these physical distancing rules while you're out and about. Governor Hogan's order to wear a mask or a face covering in retail establishments is a good idea for any time that you're out, especially if you might not be able to maintain the physical distancing at your destination. The virus is tricky. You can be non-symptomatic and be a carrier and transmit the virus. Wearing a face covering is smart for you and for the people in our community. The sooner we stop this virus, the sooner we can get back to work, school, and have our lives back. Annapolis, these are some of the toughest times in the history of our city. We are tough but resilient people. Together, we will get through this. Please be kind. Please help your neighbor where you can. Check in on elderly friends and family. Pick up the phone and call someone you think might be lonely or struggling with the social aspect of isolation. Please think about all the love that is out there in our community. Spread that love, not the virus. Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. Reports by committees.
Anybody have a report? Please put their hand up. Alderman Pindell Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just would like to say and give a huge shout out to our public safety team, our police, fire, and Office of Emergency Management. They're doing an exceptional job, one that we all can't even imagine. But I just want to publicly say that we have no report regarding a meeting, but I just want to give them a huge shout out for all that they're doing. They're right there on the front lines, and we thank them so very much. And we wish them well and safety and good health and Godspeed. Thank you.
Attorney.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the Transportation Committee met this past Wednesday, and we had unanimous recommendation for a piece of legislation for tonight, which is the filing of the fiscal year 2021 annual transportation plan grant application with the Maryland Transit Administration. We also reviewed and recommended favorably the legislation addressing the rideshare drop-offs. Thank you.
Any other reports? I see no hands. Thank you all. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, the next item on the agenda is the Finance Committee report on the Mayor's FY 2021 budget.
Alderman Arnett, would you please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Report? Thank you. And thank you for all the hard work you've been doing. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that compliment. I want to start by thanking the committee, Alderwoman Sheila Finlayson and Alderman Fred Payon. This year, unlike last year, we managed to all stay healthy and make all of the meetings. There were 18 of them. They were long and hard and numerous emails and phone calls. I think this year the committee dug even deeper into the budget than ever before, at least in my experience. And we're all proud of the effort that we put forth for this analysis. We're also very proud and pleased with all of the effort and work relationships we had with multiple city staff. And I want to start off by thanking the city manager in particular, along with the assistant to the city manager, Lynn Farrow. David was there through all of the meetings and also doing catch up, including a very much needed editing of the final report, which I was glad that he did for us. So we appreciate that. But I think more importantly, we really appreciate David's very steady leadership and guidance. And it was very good for us to work with him. Likewise with Jody Dickinson, the finance director, and Katie Conley, and I'm sure a whole bunch of other finance department staff. We asked a lot of the finance department, and boy, we pretty much got it overnight. And I think literally sometimes all night or overnight, long into the night anyway. They certainly put in a lot of hours for us. But I think now that we're done, we have a much better budget binder and a much better process for the years going forward. And I hope you council members will find that the work that we did was helpful for you. We of course want to thank all the department heads and their staff. This year we asked them to follow a somewhat different process in using the performance management system as the framework for their presentations. I think using that made the flow of the presentations much smoother and also gave us a parallel construction across the departments. And there was a lot of good work that went into those reports. I hope they're all going to find their way up on the city website, because I think any citizen in the city who doesn't know what the city does can go to those performance measures PowerPoints and have a very strong understanding. We want to thank the Office of Law, who obviously is also part of our departments, but Mike Lyles kept us on the legal path. Sometimes we strayed a little, and also gave us a lot of useful information. And I think the committee and they will join me in giving special thanks to Takia Green. She kept the committee on track. She kept us in order. She kept us doing the right procedures, and she kept our minutes. And so that was really good. And along with Takia, we had great help from Julian and Mark and Mitchell getting us on air and keeping us on air. Our makeup crew wasn't that good, but the rest of the on-air work was great. Now for the budget. We had some big overview issues that we looked at, starting with looking at the relative growth rates for revenues versus expenditures. We have some developing concerns there. You'll see tables for this in the report from the committee. We also looked at a new table comparing growth rates for tax revenue versus growth rates in employee compensation. And I think that also shows some things that we're going to have to work on in the future. We looked at how heavily we rely on grant funding, and we worried, though we had no solutions for you, about whether the pandemic is going to have some impact on the grants, positive, possibly, or negative, maybe. But those are some of the things that we looked into. We looked at the levels of personal property tax, hotel tax, parking revenue, bus fares, where we know that there have been some immediate impacts on them in the current 2020 budget at its end. We're trying to figure out what will be happening to those as we get into 2021, and certainly we'll need to be thinking about all of the uncertainties in 21 and 22 with the pandemic. The city manager has promised the finance committee, and I think thereby the council as well, to give us very frequent monitoring and update along with Jody on how we're progressing through the budget. I think that's going to be a comfort for us. Hopefully it'll be more information rather than requiring a lot of actions on our part, but we're going to need that. With regard to the pandemic, the council and the committee really tried to figure out what, if anything, we should do in anticipation of the out years. Other than close monitoring, we don't have suggestions for you, council, but I think that there are things that we can develop and do fairly quickly. And last, in terms of overview, and I shamelessly stole this from the city manager, we have a table for you with good news and bad news. it gives the council things to consider as they go through the budget, hopefully as we go through it together. A brief review of the legislation, starting with Ordinance 16-20. We evaluated in detail all 29 sections of the ordinance and all 3 appendices. We voted unanimously to support all of the sections in the budget, but 4 of them, we had a majority vote, and one of them, and it's a big one, we couldn't come to a decision, and I'll elaborate on that a little bit more. Section 1 and Appendix A in the budget binder and in the ordinance are the appropriations ordinance for the general fund and expenditures. So it's no small matter. The big rub for us was how to manage the reduction in employee pay in order to balance the budget. The city manager calls for a delay in the COLAs and a not payment of the city contribution for the 401 plan. I will speak for myself only. I think that the issues there are technical for me in that we need to make sure we can do what the budget calls for. Certainly for the COLAs, we'll have to negotiate with the unions, and we need to get more information on the 401A plan to see what kinds of latitude we have there. So council, we didn't want to do all the work, so we left that one for you. I hope you appreciate that. Moving on to the capital budget and the CIP, we went through those. We had a very good presentation again from the city manager and from the Department of Public Works. We recommended to the council that you approve both the fiscal 21 capital budget and the CIP for 22 through 26. Part of that was a removal of $1.5 million that had been budgeted in the CIP for the Hillman Garage. We're taking that out until we see what happens with the procurements. If the city needs to go ahead and build the garage itself, those monies obviously will have to go back in. I'm sure that we'll have lots of discussion in July about the procurement for the garage and for City Dock and all of the other things for downtown. On the R2620, the fees, the council recommended approval to the council. There were a couple of amendments to remove a couple of fees and change the wordings, but pretty much straightforward. There were a lot of changes, but they all seemed well thought out and very reasonable. So we voted unanimously to recommend you approve those. On the fines, there was only one change in that schedule, which the committee accepted, and we also voted unanimously to recommend to you that you consider approving the fine resolution. The pay schedule, which we typically approve every year, is the same pay schedule that we've had in fiscal 2019 and 2020. We're just proposing to continue it on into fiscal 21, so there's no legislative action necessary on that, but we did include it in the finance report, so you would have that for a reference. Finally, we approved the community grants in the amount of $429,700. As is usual on the Finance Committee, there was a lot of discussion about this. The committee recommended some minor changes to the allocation that came to us from the Grants Committee. That's obviously going on to you, Council, for your review, and you are the ultimate approvers of all of that. The Finance Committee offers to meet with council members. We really feel like we gained a great facility in understanding the budget, and we have a lot more detail that we got from the Finance Department this year in terms of more line item detail. It is a complicated budget, and it really does take a lot of work, but we would be happy to meet with you. We're scheduled right now to meet with you for the work session on May 21st. but we can meet with you more times than that. The idea is to try to get a lot of the questions that arise during a council meeting when we're trying to approve the budget, get those out of the way so that everybody has an understanding. So we offer that to you, and we hope you'll take advantage of that because we'd like to think we have something to offer, but that's really up to you. I would take this time now to offer time for both the other committee members, Sheila and Fred, to make comments if they would like to do so at this point. I see Fred has his hand up.
Alderman Peone had his hand up.
You're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be unmuting myself for most of the rest of the meeting, I promise. But I will be filing a minority report, a very brief minority report sometime in the next few days. And I will leave the rest of what I have to say for budget discussions and for my brief report, minority report. Thank you.
Philip?
Listen.
Thank you. I concur with our chairman. We had a great process. Everyone stepped up and gave us what we needed. I implore upon all of you to look at the documents that are provided. I think they're in one central location. Takia can help you get to those documents, but they will be very helpful, let's just say, in the decisions that we have to make. Most importantly, our employees are first and foremost in our minds, I hope, as the providers of services. And so I approach the budget with that in mind. And I hope that, you know, that's something that's of interest to all of you. As Alderman said, we'll be available to answer questions, but please feel free to reach out to any of us if you have questions or concerns. We had extensive discussions about everything in the budget. And 18 meetings doesn't sound like a lot, but when you think of the number of hours, and we didn't total the number of hours, but it was considerable. And David and Jody hung in there, as well as everybody else, but David and Jody hung in there with us every single minute of the way. And so there is a lot of information to be had during, you know, this time. So I welcome questions and concerns. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeoman's job you've done, even though we're not finished.
So thank you. I want to thank the committee again, and I want to just say I totally respect what Alderman Peone is doing and his right opinion to do that. But I wouldn't want it to give any indication but what I think our committee work was very collegial and cooperative and very productive. And so I'll just say a last thank you from the committee and hope you value the work that we did for you.
Thank you, Alderman Savage.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to the committee. You've put in an incredible amount of time looking into all of this. And for those of us who are unable, due to whatever reason, be it, day job, in my case, I was unable to keep pace with all of you. So thank you. This is going to be incredible help, I know, for me to be able to look at this. And thanks to staff, too. I was really impressed. I did manage to watch many of the staff presentations, and that was incredibly helpful as well. So one question I have is, where can we and the public get a hold of this document when is it completed?
Yes, okay. I think it was sent to you at 3, if I'm not mistaken. If it's not, we certainly we can get it to you very quickly.
Is that going to be posted online for the public?
I would hope so, because I think that we tried to craft it to be of value to the council members for your deliberation, but we also tried to craft it so that the public, when they pick it up can travel through all the materials with a great deal of facility and understanding. So I would assume it will also be, well, by virtue of it being discussed on this council meeting, I think it is already public. I'll defer to the city attorney on that, but I think it should be. I think all of the department reports and briefings also should be public. They really were superb. And so I hope all of that gets up online pretty quick.
Thank you. Anybody else? I see no hands up. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is written testimony from the general public.
So the following people have submitted written comments. They are Charles Parker, 141 West Street, Alex Pline, 305 Monterey Ave, Christina Krantz, 17 North Cherry Grove Avenue, Eric Evans, 92 West Washington Street, Christina Kamenoff, 117 Edelmar Drive, Erin Drayden, 904 Bank Street. Thank you all for submitting that testimony. Alderman Arnett.
Two things, please. I don't see any of that as attachments in iLegislate. I am having a hard time. I see dribs and drabs of these as they come in, but I am having a hard time making sure I'm reading all of these comments. I try to take them seriously. And I am also, second point, really getting quite a bit of pushback and concern from constituents about the lack of being able to have face-to-face public testimony. And certainly there are letters and emails being written saying, while we're down or in this hampered phase, we should probably try to go slower, make sure everybody is able to catch up with us and stay on board. I think the work we do is important. I think it's important to our constituents, and certainly given the volume of comments that I get from them, they are paying attention, and we need to pay attention to them as well.
And I would like to apologize to our constituents and say thank you for your patience as we kind of work through this system that is very new to all of us. So we are trying to improve it as we go, but it's a little rough on everybody that it's happened at this time as we go into our budget. So I apologize. Alderman Finlayson, maybe Regina can give some clarification on the where we post the letters and how we're moving on that after Alderman Finlayson comes in.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is it possible to tell us the subject of the correspondence that you received? I'm not familiar with the form that you're reading, so I think it might be a bit more helpful if we know what people are writing about.
I'll let Regina give a little bit of clarification, and then I know that our city attorney has been working pretty hard on this and how we don't cross certain lines. So we'll go to him after Regina.
Well, I just wanted to say for the record, we received them. We were getting some notifications in at 6:40. I mean, we get them all day long. So we, if they fill out the form correctly, we can start to add to the mayor's information what piece of legislation they're speaking on. But you can't make a determination based on what they wrote, how they feel about the subject. We can't do that. So the written testimony, as soon as they hit send, is sent to the alderpersons and us. So it doesn't stop. So I don't know how we could coordinate to get everybody what they kind of need. And there has been discussion regarding audio testimony. but I don't know where we are at this point. So that is all I kind of have to offer right now. You might want to ask Mike for some input.
Alderwoman Finlayson.
Is there a subject line that we could ask them to fill out themselves?
There is
so
one.
that you wouldn't have to read the entire document to figure out what the content is. And, you know, if we have to give a time certain when they have to be in, they have to be in by that time certain, or they don't get on the agenda for that given meeting.
We did have a time certain, 3:00, and they're still coming they were coming as we walked upstairs to come up to set up for this meeting. So we're working on it. Mike, please help.
At some point, you're going to have to say enough for this meeting. Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. City Attorney, I'll just get a little clarification and then go to you, Rob.
Yeah, the issue we have is we ask for that information and they still don't provide it. They write it, we transmit it, and that's all we have staff and resources to be able to do at this point. It comes in, we provide it, and what's easy to provide at this time is the name and the address. But sometimes the information that we request, they don't provide. So we just simply transmit it. It's clear from the information that they do provide that we have to provide, and we have to get from them a name and address. And they're pretty clear about that, and the boxes that we've arranged are clear for that. The other things are kind of optional. And so we don't always get clarity on what a person is doing, and the subject line isn't filled out.
Thank you. Alderman Savage.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to reiterate that it's really, I think, irrelevant when we get the public testimony, because again, the public testimony period doesn't close until the mayor closes it. And as long as it gets in by the time he actually closes it, then it's part of the record and we'll get it. Also, again, we don't vote the same night we get the public hearing, the public testimony. So if it comes in the day after our meeting, organized or whatever, that's fine. And we have to remember that's how the code is written, is they can submit it beyond 3 o'clock, beyond 4 o'clock. They can go until we actually close it at this meeting.
Thank you. Alderman Attorney.
Let me unmute. Just for clarification, the public testimony that you just summarized, was that attributed to comments by the general public, and the specific testimony for legislation on public hearing will be listed later? Okay, yeah, a lot of people think that you're reciting all of the testimony that came in, but you went through them by the subject line and then divvied them up accordingly. Yeah, and that kind of explains, Rob, Alderman Savage, the logistics in that. I would suspect they have a Regina has the deadline so that she can do that distribution and sorting out, I would expect, but I understand, they should always be accepted. So it's a tough one.
Yes, it's a push-pull kind of thing. If we don't stop collecting, then you won't get a list the night of the meeting. You'll get a list later. So we kind of have to do that and get ready for the meeting. So we take what we have and put that on the agenda. The others will remain and then get forward.
Alderwoman Pindell Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Lyles, I'm not tech savvy at all, but I know with some surveys or forms that you fill out, if the little red dot comes up and if you don't fill it out, the mandatory information, then it doesn't go through. Is that something we can take a look at? It kicks it back?
The problem with that is the code only requires 2 things, name and address.
Touche.
Okay. Thank you all. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is the consent calendar, inclusive of the approval of journal of proceedings, special meeting minutes, fund transfers, FT 5-20, general fund transfers from the contingency account, and legislative actions, first readers, 01820, institutions for the care of the aged, 01920, city council public hearings, R2920, affordable housing task force membership, and that completes the end of the consent calendar.
Are there any objections to items on the consent calendar? I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar. Motion, please.
Move to approve the consent count.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Alderman Savage. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, Mayor Buckley? Mayor Buckley? Alderman Payon?
Aye.
Alderwoman Pendle Charles?
Aye.
Alderman Finlayson?
Aye.
Alderman Rodriguez?
Aye.
Alderman Gay?
I actually want to pull, sorry, the fund transfer.
Is it too late to do that, Regina?
Well, we were on the roll call part, but, hold on.
Yes, it's too late to do that.
We
You have to do that before the motion. Right, Regina?
Yeah. A motion and a second, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Motion is second. He can vote no on the motion, but that's where we are right now.
Well, yeah, I just thought no.
Okay. Alderman Savage?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett?
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney?
Aye.
Okay. The motion passes. The consent calendar has been approved.
I'm hoping in the budget we have some money for a set of cool headphones and microphone like Alderman Savage has for Regina.
I'll take one of
So
those.
you guys can spin some records together and we can get better sound from you, Regina.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is 0520, City Council meetings, order of business. Public hearing. Continued.
So we have received no comments for this, no testimony. Does anyone want to defer this or?
Excuse me. At your last meeting, you requested to just stay open until May 26th.
Okay. So it is already on there as a deferment. So I declare the public hearing on 05-20 left open until Tuesday, May 26th, 2020. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, the next item for public hearings continued is 01520, Waterfront Mixed Maritime District.
So we have received comments from the following. Larry Belkoff, 127 Severn Ave. Christopher Ledoux, 215 Severn Ave. So if anyone is okay, Alderman Arnett, this is kind of your thing. I'm going to declare this public hearing closed.
I think we had extended that for at least 2 more meetings.
No.
I have it.
So there's still lots of work coming from the community. It is going to the Planning Commission next. I see perplexity on Regina's face, and that's never a good sign, but I thought we had this held open for a while longer. I know there are other comments coming from the community. This is proving to be controversial, and I want to give everybody a chance to speak to it.
I'll get some clarification from the city clerk.
Well, this is the second hearing, and there wasn't any extension at the last one to request that it stay open any longer, so it's up to you guys if it stays open or closed.
Alderman Arnett, do you want to extend it one more council hearing?
Do we know when it's scheduled to go to the Planning Commission?
This is Mike Lyles. It's already at the Planning Commission, and we probably will have something in writing soon, but we have been going back and forth with the Planning Commission, so yes, there should be something sent to you soon.
Wait a minute, you're not telling me that the Planning Commission...
I'm sorry. Planning, I'm talking about Planning and Zoning, not the Planning Commission. I apologize.
Yeah, I think it may be scheduled for the Planning Commission on the 27th of May, which means there would be time for one more opportunity for public hearing before it goes to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission itself gives public hearing. When they come back to the council, typically their report, when their report comes back, we have a public hearing and then it goes to committee. I don't think we can be too careful with this legislation. Surprisingly enough, it's the parking part of it as much as the maritime that seems to be drawing comments, but nevertheless, with all of the hampered ability for people to be able to provide comments, I would feel more comfortable if we left it open for at least one more hearing.
Madam City Clerk?
Well, I think Sally is on this call. You can ask her what is going on with the Planning Commission, or David.
Okay, we have the city manager with some comments.
Yeah, I just got a message from Sally that it's on the next Planning Commission meeting agenda, so it'll be heard at the next Planning Commission meeting.
Is that not the 27th of May?
I do not know the date. Let me see if I hear from Sally. No, it's the June meeting. She says the June meeting. June is the next meeting.
So it feels to me like we can leave it open until it's scheduled to go to the Planning Commission, at which time the Planning Commission will hold at least one public hearing. This one is the maritime zone.
Is that the second?
Okay, so I would prefer, Mr. Mayor, if we could hold it open, or at least the meeting on the council meeting on the 26th before the Planning Commission. The maritime zone always draws a lot of interest and concern because it's so important to Annapolitans, and so I don't think we can be too careful with this.
Regina, we're going to give some clarification on that, then I'll go to Alderman Payon.
Okay, excuse me, Alderman Arnett, I think I heard David said that that item was going to the Planning Commission in June. So would you like to have it held open until the second meeting in June? Because June 8th is your budget meeting and it starts at 10 a.m.
Let me get off of mute. My understanding of the process, unless this has changed, is it'll go to the Planning Commission in due course. They will hold their public hearing. When the Planning Commission has its deliberations and comes back with its findings, those findings are sent to the City Council. At that time, there will be a public hearing before the City Council to hear the Planning Commission's findings. And after that, it gets assigned, in this case, to the Rules and City Government. That's where the Planning Commission. So I think that if we hold this open for one more City Council meeting, then it's right after that, it's going to go to the Planning Commission. Any more comments we get in will all be going to the Planning Commission. Planning Commission will hold its own public hearing on June 4th. I'm sure there'll be lots of attendance there. They'll make their findings, and then it comes back to us.
Alderman Payon?
Thank you. I couldn't agree with my colleague from Ward 8 any more than I do. I think this is potentially an important piece of legislation. And I go back to what I said at the last meeting, that is that we ought to just be putting off important pieces of legislation until we can meet in person back in the chambers. If I had my druthers, that's what I would do for this one. I think putting it off till the Planning Commission has it and is having a hearing on it, I think is a prudent move. And we don't have anything to lose. It's a couple of days here and there isn't really going to make much of a difference. It's an important issue. We ought to let it remain open. Thank you.
Alderman Arnett, do you want to make a motion to put it to that date in May? What would that be, Regina?
Okay, for clarification purposes, I'm just going to ask
The next council meeting
this.
is Tuesday, May 26th.
But you said that the Planning Commission was not going to meet until the 4th of June. I thought you wanted to leave the hearing open so we can receive the findings and then put it back on the city council agenda. So that would have to be after June.
I would be delighted. I agree with Alderman Payon. Alderman Savage and Alderwoman Tierney are also waterside alderpersons, and I think they know from time to time how sensitive this could be. So yeah, I don't want to rush this, and I've promised my constituents that I wouldn't. So I agree the meeting right after June 4th, I believe starts at 10 o'clock in the morning. It's an all-day council meeting to do the budget. So I doubt that it would be appropriate there. So it would be postponed until the last meeting in June, whatever that date is, which would then give us time to have the Planning Commission and all the public input, and then still get to the meeting the beginning of July for the rules in city government. I think the second Tuesday, Sheila, in July.
What date is that, Regina?
Okay, so for clarification purposes, Alderman Arnett is requesting that the public hearing on 0520 stays open until the second meeting of June.
And
I'm
what
sorry,
date is that?
015.
Sorry.
Yeah.
15th?
Yeah.
So can I get a motion on that, Alderman Arnett?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? Alderman, all those in favor? Or do we call roll, Regina, or show of hands? Show of hands. All those in favor?
That carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I declare the public hearing on 0-15-20 open till the 15th of June. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda. Oh, Regina? Oh, 27th, sorry. 22nd, sorry.
22nd of June.
Done early. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, the next item on the agenda for public hearings continued is 01620, annual budget appropriation and property tax levy.
Thank you. We have received no letters from the public. I'd like to accept into the record a memorandum to the Annapolis City Council for the Planning Commission dated May 11th, 2020. And I will declare the public hearing on 0-16-20 closed. Mr. City Attorney.
Yes, sir.
Present the next.
Yeah, sorry. Next items are public hearings. 0420, Public Code, Capital Plumbing Code, Capital Facilities Payment Plan for the purpose of establishing a capital facilities payment plan, identifying eligibility requirements, setting a payment schedule, providing for interest and penalties, making stylistic changes, and generally related to the payment plan.
We again have received no comments on this. There's no more discussion. I will declare the public hearing on O-4-20 closed. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item is for public hearing O-11-20, City Council meetings attendance, for the purpose of allowing a member of the City Council to attend a regularly scheduled council meeting by electronic means, placing limitations on remote attendance and generally related to attending council meetings remotely.
Alderwoman Pindell-Charles.
Yes, Alderwoman Finlayson, I have a question. I'm just reading it. This is just for the regularly scheduled council meeting and not for our special council meetings.
I think it's for all of our council meetings.
Okay, I'm just looking at the title right now.
Right, it does speak to regular scheduled meetings. I don't think we have delineated between the two at this point. But the purpose, of course, is to allow members who are incapacitated to be able to participate regardless of the type of meeting.
Right, I just want to make sure that both meetings were covered. Thank you.
It seems kind of, I mean, we are living this right now, so, you know.
Absolutely. I just want to make sure we were covered.
Yes.
And what we thought was impossible before is now possible. So we're moving this city into the new century. Thank you all. I received no comments. So I'm declaring the public hearing on O-11-20 closed. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, the next item on the agenda continuing with public hearings continued is O-12-20, municipal infractions process, for the purpose of clarifying that municipal infraction enforcement actions are processed through the Office of Law and making stylistic changes.
I see no comments been submitted. Any from you guys? I'm declaring the public hearing on O-12-20 closed. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item is O-13-20, sidewalk signs, for the purpose of extending sidewalk sign permit fee waivers to a date certain.
We have received no comments on that. We gave it a bit of time last week. See that no one's putting their hand up, so let's declare the public hearing at O-13-20 closed. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, the next item is O-14-20, parking spaces reserved for plug-in electric drive vehicles, for the purpose of establishing reserved parking spaces for plug-in electric drive vehicles, creating certain definitions, establishing penalties, and making stylistic changes.
And I again have no comments from the public. So I declare the public hearing on O-14-20 closed. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. O-17-20, unsafe structures, placarding, for the purpose of authorizing the fire department to placard certain residential and non-residential structures that have been designated as unfit for human habitation or unsafe, and making stylistic changes.
Again, I've received no comments for this. I declare the public hearing on O-17-20 closed. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, the next item is R-2620, fiscal year 2021 fee schedule, for the purpose of specifying fees that will be charged for the use of city services for fiscal year 2021 and providing for a delayed effective date.
I again have received no comments. I declare the public hearing on R-26-20 closed. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, the next item is fiscal year 2021 fines schedule for the purpose of specifying fines that will be charged for fiscal year 2021 and providing for a delayed effective date.
We have received no comments. I am declaring the hearing on R-27-20 closed. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is legislative actions first reader, beginning with CA 120, Deputy City Manager for Resilience and Sustainability, for the purpose of establishing the position, defining qualifications and responsibilities, providing for certain terms of employment and compensation, line of authority, updating powers and duties, and generally related to the position of Deputy City Manager.
Is there a motion to adopt CA 1-20 on first reader?
So moved.
For a second? Alderman Savage on the second. Alderman Pindell Charles?
I moved it, but if I was overridden, then I'm seconding it.
But did you you had some comments?
Oh, yes. I want, Madam Clerk, please add me as a co-sponsor to this piece of legislation. Okay. All right. Thank you. Just want to make sure.
Alderman Gay?
Yeah, I asked that just before we get to second reader, if possible, we get a little more description of what the exact powers of the Deputy City Manager would be.
It won't go to second reader if we adopt today.
Absolutely.
Oh, so this is open for like full discussion to that too.
The motion.
It's
yes.
It's on first reader. We're open for discussion now. I could get the city manager to give you an overview.
Well, yeah, in that case, I'd like a little more description now then on what the exact role of this deputy manager would be.
And just a point of order. This is just first reader, so it still has to go to second reader and through the committees. So we'll have plenty of time to discuss this. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time.
Okay, I'll get it. We'll do a quick one, Rob. Just
yep.
One from Dave, and then we'll do the short version, Alderman Gay, and then we'll get as much information to you as possible.
Okay.
Mr. City Manager? Yeah.
Yes, so if you, what I'm going to reference to is the paragraph in the staff report on the charter amendment. It lists specifically the deputy city manager shall have the following powers and duties. So I'll just run through some of these because what we're looking for is sustainability and resilience are issues that are going to become more and more important as we move forward. We all know because of climate change and other factors that these are very important duties and responsibilities. So it's my opinion that because these are important issues that the position needs to be moved to a higher level to be able to address these issues. But let me just briefly review. It's actually a list of 14 duties and responsibilities, so it's very detailed. So I won't read through all these, but I'll hit some of the highlights. So it develops sustainability, resilience, and land conservation plans and works with city offices and departments to implement the programs. So again, going to work with all the departments. It's across the board. It's not just certain departments that are affected by these, but this is going to be all the departments. Advises the city manager, mayor, and city council on resilience and sustainability alternatives and opportunities and provides input and guidance on related programs and initiatives. Serves as the city's point person for all groups and issues involved in sustainability, resilience, and environmental compliance. Ensures that public education and outreach requirements of the city's MS4 stormwater permit are met. Shepherds, and I think this one's really important, shepherds watershed restoration projects through the city's review and permitting process. That's been an area that we've been missing, and some of these projects have kind of tended to lose momentum as they were moving through the review and permitting process. This individual will be responsible to make sure that they keep moving through all of the departments that touch these watershed restoration projects to ensure that they get completed as they need to. Works with city offices and departments and a broad range of stakeholders to develop and implement resilience and sustainability initiatives. Ensures that sustainability, resilience, and environmental policies that are adopted by mayor, city council, and city manager are fully implemented. Reviews select development projects to ensure the city's environmental regulations are being fully utilized to meet resilience, sustainability, and social equity goals. So again, there's some room in the city code to require higher levels of treatment, and so this position will be responsible to make sure that we fully exploit those. Coordinates department efforts to prepare the city for impacts of sea level rise and climate change. Coordinates the city's public education and grant writing efforts related to resilience and sustainability. Meets with, makes presentations to, and develops resilience and sustainability materials for city staff, city council, committees, boards and commissions, nonprofit organizations, and the public. Staffs the city's Environmental Matters Committee, Environmental Commission, and Waterways Cabinet. Supervises the work of the Environmental Programs Coordinator. So there's 3 people right now in Office of Environmental Programs. The city forester is going to move to planning and zoning. The Environmental Programs Coordinator will stay with the Deputy City Manager. And then finally, seeks grants for sustainability, resilience, and environmental initiatives. So pretty broad-ranging duties and responsibilities. It's going to be a big job, and it's going to take a lot of effort to coordinate all this with all the departments. So that's why I personally believe that the Deputy City Manager is the appropriate level for this position.
Alderman Gay, you had to hand up first, and then Alderman Finlayson.
Yeah, I guess my issue with even on first reader, decide which way I go is, I'm not sure how this ties into what a city manager is supposed to do. Everything you just read, and I'm looking at the outline and description in the city code of what the city manager's roles is, that doesn't tie into it at all. Even down to the criteria for a degree and things like that. So my question is, again, what is this role? Like, will they have the same powers? Will they have the same powers that?
I mean, I would say this pandemic is one of the greatest challenges of our generation, but sea level rise is just as paramount on that. So as the icebergs melt and the water warms up and new things are revealed from melting icebergs and things like that, we're going to be dealing with multiple things on that level. And so having that lens over all the departments, that environmental lens, that sustainability, that equity lens is going to be essential. And already the work is getting done so far. So that's my position, Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, I would just say, so the city manager is responsible for all the operations of the city, across the board, everything. This is one piece of the operation that I feel needs special attention, that I, as a city manager, would not be able to give the special attention to that it deserves. And so that's why I think it's important to have the deputy city manager to oversee these areas, and whoever the person is will report directly to me, and take the follow of what the council wants, but with a much higher level of focus and attention to these areas than what I would be able to give it as the city manager.
And I just want to finish my question because it still hasn't been answered yet. So what is the role? I mean, so if you are out, David, then with 2 city managers, where does the power go? And if this person's responsibility is to solely focus on the environment, I guess, is there a way that it can be structured, as we see in that flow chart often, where they don't carry out the same roles and responsibilities as a city manager, and they don't have the same powers as a city manager? Because to be frank, they are not a city manager. their focus is solely the environment. The deputy city manager's focus should be right behind you in delegating the responsibilities to run our city, not to focus on the environment. I guess that's where my concern is.
You on, Mr. Mayor, you're muted.
I think, Mr. City Manager, you can answer that. I mean, it's...
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. So again, this is not going to be another city manager. You're not going to end up with two city managers who are battling it out on who's really the city manager. What you're going to end up with is a city manager with a deputy that's looking over these specific areas. And it goes across all the departments, but it's still a laser focus on sustainability, resilience, and environmental compliance. Ideally, if I could clone myself and have, enough time to do all this, I would do this myself, but that's not really possible. So what I'd like to do is take the existing position that we have for environmental policy, elevate it so it can work across all the departments on all these areas of concern.
Thank you. Alderman Finlayson is next.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I'm just as confused as Alderman Gay. And excellent questions and observations, Alderman Gay. When we created the city manager office position, it was with the intent of creating an office because we know that the city manager's job is bigger than one person can handle. Because of budget restraints, we've never been able to really do what we needed to do for that department. For 2 years, I fought to get an assistant to the city manager and was successful last year during the budget process. For some reason, that position has changed from assistant to the city manager to assistant city manager without the qualifications therefore. So my first question is, when the city manager is out of the office or out of the city or out of the state, who's in charge?
So I will answer that, so it's okay, Mayor.
Yes, please.
The assistant city manager will be acting when I am out of the office, because the deputy city manager is going to keep the focus on these areas that I just talked about. Whereas the assistant city manager more oversees all the operations as I do and assists me with that.
Okay, which creates a whole nother issue that we'll have to address at a later time. What about other departments that are of equal significance? For example, the Office of Emergency Preparedness, which also touches every department during a crisis. And when we're not in a major pandemic, is the plan to create a deputy for all of the important departments that we have in the city? Or just this one? Yes, Mr. City Manager.
No, just this one. And so when we have an emergency like we do now, and the Office of Emergency Management becomes the incident commander, and they have increased power at that time. When we're not in an emergency, there's no reason that you need to have that higher level. They coordinate things, they plan for, they prepare us for, but they don't have the same level of responsibility over the departments as they do during emergency. So that's working the way it's supposed to work. They do the planning and preparations for emergencies. When there are emergencies, then they become incident commanders and they oversee the operations.
I guess when we are in the planning phase, OEM has that significance. If we don't do the planning, when the incidents occur, we're not ready for it. So, I'm not clear on why we would downgrade their significance in the planning phase and then increase their significance when there is a some sort of a catastrophe. Would this position oversee other departments? Because I clearly recall in one of our hearings last year, when you were our director of DPW, and we had the director of planning and zoning, and maybe it was last spring when this subject came up in a different format, when we had clearly delineated the role of this position. And I heard concerns on both directors' parts about someone overseeing their department in part, if not in total, but in part, without the background, the authority to do so. And now we're talking about elevating this position over all other departments, inclusive of those two. So that's a little confusing. I can't hear one thing at one time, and then all of a sudden we seem to have changed our approach to this.
No, so the answer is no. So my opinion hasn't changed about that. So no departments are going to report to the deputy city manager. They're all going to still report directly to me. That person, that position will have one report, and that's the environmental coordinator. That's it. That hasn't changed.
Who would the environmental coordinator be? Isn't that the deputy position we're talking about?
No, so there's 3 positions currently in OEP. So the forester is going to move over to planning and zoning, and the other 2 positions will move to the city manager's office. And the deputy city manager will oversee the environmental coordinator position. And that's it. That's the only direct supervision. All the departments will still report to the city manager.
Except for this department. The deputy will report to you like all other departments.
Correct.
But we don't want it to be like all other departments in this respect. Okay, thank you.
Alderman Tierney is next, then Alderman Arnett. Thank you.
Point of order, I think, takes precedent.
Okay.
I'd like to ask the city attorney, it feels to me that we're debating the issue. The issue before us is to approve this on first reader. All of this dialogue is totally legitimate after we've approved it on first reader and we go through the proper processes. Unless this is argument on the part of some to vote against this on first reader, which it may well be, it seems to me that all of this discussion is out of order at this point. We really need to take a vote to approve this or disapprove this on first reader.
Not out of order.
I'd love to get an opinion from the city attorney. Thank you.
Yes, the discussion has gone far afield of the motion. The motion on the floor is whether or not this should be adopted on first reader and move forward. The discussions have become about the substance of the position versus the motion. And I guess I was waiting some leeway to see where it was going to go, but it's never gotten back to what the original motion is. So I agree with Alderman Arnett.
So I'm going to just call the question. Madam City Clerk, can we do a show of hands here, or do you want to call a roll on this for first reader?
This is a show
of hands. Mayor. Okay, all those in favor of adopting CA-1-20 on first reader, please raise their hand. Can everyone get their hand up high? Thank you. All those opposed? 2 opposers, I see.
It carries.
Regina?
That motion carries on. It is adopted on first reader.
Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is O-2020, Deputy City Manager for Resiliency and Sustainability. Same topic, but this is for the ordinance, whereas the previous was for a charter amendment.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt O-20-20? Alderman Arnett with his hand up. Could I get a second, please? Alderman Pindell Charles, we've had a lot of discussion. It's the same subject. I am going to call the vote here. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise their hands. Thank you. I refer O-20 to the Finance Committee, the Economic Matters Committee, Environmental Matters Committee, Housing and Human Welfare Committee, Rules of City Government Committee, and the Transportation Committee. Obviously, CA 120, I forgot, Regina, to refer that to the Rules of City Government on the last one. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is R 2820, State of Emergency, for the purpose of extending the termination date of the declaration of state of emergency for the city of Annapolis, issued by you on March 12th, 2020.
Is there a motion to adopt R-28-20 on first reader? Alderman Arnett, thank you. Could I get a second? Alderman Pendle-Charles. Is there a motion to suspend the rules to allow passage of a resolution at the meaning of its introduction? We have to get a unanimous consent on this to extend Alderman Gay. And the second, Alderman Finlayson. To extend our state of emergency. You need a roll call or a show of the hands? Roll call. Show of hands. All those in favor, show their hand.
It carried.
Unanimous to me. Thank you all. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
We just adopted the suspension of the rules with your hands, so we are actually on second reader.
Do a roll call
motion
as
for
well,
second.
so sorry.
You want a roll call? Okay. Mayor Buckley,
Yes.
Alderman Payon, Alderman Pendle-Charles,
Aye.
Alderman Finlayson,
Aye.
Alderman Rodriguez,
Aye.
Alderman Gay,
Aye.
Alderman Savage,
Aye.
Alderman Arnett,
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney.
Aye.
Okay, all yeses.
Point of information, that was a vote to suspend the rules?
Yes.
Or was that-
Yep. So now next one we will vote on is a motion to adopt R-28-20 on second reader. Could I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Alderman Pendle-Charles, thank you. This is another roll call. Regina, thank you.
Okay. Mayor Buckley,
Aye.
Alderman Payon, Alderman Pendle-Charles,
Aye.
Alderman Finlayson,
Aye.
Alderman Rodriguez,
Aye.
Alderman Gay,
Aye.
Alderman Savage,
Aye.
Alderman Arnett,
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney.
Aye.
And that motion carries.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda are second readers. O-220, Youth Development Commission, for the purpose of establishing a Youth Development Commission, creating certain definitions, identifying responsibilities and composition of the commission, and generally relating to the Youth Development Commission.
So is there a motion to adopt O-2-20?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor, please.
Yes, for sure.
Thank you. I move.
Thank you. Could I get a second, please?
Second.
Alderman Gay for a second. So could we go through the amendments? Alderman Gay, would you like to present your two amendments first?
Yeah.
Your two amendments, please.
I had the First Amendment is just changing the verbiage so that the mayor designates an individual from the mayor's staff to oversee the commission. And the Second Amendment is I'm just striking the term department and inserting office.
And we'll try to do these all together. Alderman Savage, your third amendment.
Sorry, let me get off mute. I think this came from the Rules and Government Committee.
Yes, it did.
Does the chair want to?
Yes, I'll speak to it.
Speak to this?
It strikes the 1-year term of serving and changes it to 2 years. We thought 1 year would be just enough time to learn the process, and that 2 years was a much better opportunity for participation.
Thank you. Regina, I'm assuming I'm a sponsor in that as well, aren't I? Oh, no. Yep, thank you. Okay, so is there a motion to amend all three, for the 3 amendments? Someone put a motion forward, please.
I'll move approval of all of the amendments.
Okay. Second. All those in favor with a show of hands, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
We got everybody.
Now back
May I be added as a co-sponsor? Sorry, I'm out of order. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to vote on whether the amendments O-2-20 are substantive? Alderman Gay, are you putting a motion forward or a clarification?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm making a motion.
Probably not on substantive. No.
That would move it to so that we can just get it today, right? Or am I thinking of something else?
Yeah, no, that delays.
Oh no, I'm not making the motion. Take that off. Take that off.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt O-2-20 as amended on second reader?
So moved.
Alderman Savage seconds that. We're going to show this. All those in favor with a show of hands, say aye. Aye.
The motion carried.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt O-2-20 on third reader?
So moved. Second.
And that's a roll call. Mayor Buckley?
Clerk, please call the roll. Yes.
Alderman Payon? Alderman Payon? Okay, he said aye. Alderwoman Pendell Charles?
Aye.
Thank you. Alderman Pendell Charles?
Aye.
Alderman Finlayson?
Aye.
Alderman Rodriguez?
Aye.
Alderman Gay?
Aye.
Alderman Savage?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett? Alderwoman Tierney?
Aye.
Okay, that motion carried.
Thank you all. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, the next item is O-1119 R2 NC District demolitions for the purpose of requiring a structural analysis prior to demolition of a residential structure or building in the R2 NC Single Family Residential Neighborhood Conservation District, requiring execution of a contract between the city and the structural engineer prior to demolition, and generally relating to the demolition of a residential structure in that district.
So are you putting forward a motion, Alderman Arnett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a conversation with Dr. Nash about this and a couple of other pieces of legislation and had agreed to meet with her. I also don't think this has gone before the Rules Committee. So I would like it to go before the Rules Committee unless the chair wants to suspend that. So I think this needs to be postponed, and it can't be postponed to tomorrow's Rules Committee because I won't have had time to meet with the Director of Planning and Zoning to discuss this. So I think it has to be postponed to the council meeting prior to next month's Rules Committee meeting, which is also the budget hearing meeting. I don't know what to do. I mean, they're getting pushback, but the the director of planning and zoning wanted to talk about it, and I do think this needs to go before the rules committee. I'm ready to vote on it tonight, by the way. I like it the way it is, but commitments are commitments.
So that's a motion to push it. Let's just push it back to the next date. Is that right, Alderman Arnett?
Yes, I think so. If we can get, I know I can get a meeting with Dr. Nash and her staff. We may have to see if the chair of the Rules Committee will indulge for a special meeting after that meeting so we can get it ready for a vote at the next council meeting on the 26th.
City Clerk Regina, is that acceptable?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can we get a second on that, please?
Second.
Okay, so can we get a show of hands for the postponement? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Say no.
And the motion carried.
Motion to postpone that.
Postpone until the 26th.
Thank you all. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, the next item on the agenda for second reader is 01919, adequate public facility, auto transportation facility, for the purpose of clarifying the circumstances that would require a traffic impact analysis for a proposed project, clarifying the standards to be used to determine adequacy and generally relating to the adequacy of auto transportation facilities.
Is there a motion to postpone this? Alderman Arnett.
I think there will be, but I wanted to get a clarification. Again, the city, the director of planning and zoning wants to talk about this, but I also think the city manager and the city attorney have ideas because this overlaps with all of the other adequate public facilities legislation. I would want to substitute an amendment for the legislation that was written by former city manager Sutherland just before she left. I like that language quite a bit, but I'll turn to the city manager and the city attorney to see if I'm not correct that you want to have more discussion about the entire adequate public facilities set of rules.
Mr. City Manager.
Well, we certainly are having a fuller discussion of all the adequate public facilities, and the law office has made great strides working with planning and zoning to have those together. So I guess that's a long way of saying I agree with Alderman Arnett that we are working on this and perhaps need to wrap this legislation to that effort.
I have agreed to meet with Sally this week. Maybe we need to make it a bigger meeting, but we had, unfortunately, I seem to be Mr. Postponement. I think I have a number of pieces of legislation that are in the queue, and a lot of them require discussion with the Director of Planning and Zoning, but also the city manager and the city attorney. I'm glad to have such high-level attention. Now that the budget's out of the way, I hope we can get to it.
And Mr. City Attorney, do you want to give some clarification too?
I think everything that's been said is pretty much on point with where we are. We're developing, we're helping planning and zoning in this area, and there's a lot of work to be done. So everything's been said.
So are you putting forward a postponement date, Alderman Arnett?
Yes, I think in this case we should postpone it to is it safe to postpone it to the second meeting in June, or do we think we might be overtaken by budget at that meeting? I think it would be safe to do it then. There's also, again, a great deal of interest in this from several different community groups, including the Forest Drive Eastport Sector Study Group. So again, I don't think we can be too careful, and particularly with everybody being so slowed down by the disruption of the pandemic. I think my sense would be postponed till the second meeting in June, at which time I think we'll have had a chance to work with everybody and see where this is going. It may be certainly I want to offer a substitute. It may be amend or withdrawn in favor of the new processes being worked on by the city manager, city attorney, and director of planning and zoning. So that would be my sense. Second meeting in June.
Mr. City Manager, you see any issues with that?
Not at all.
Okay, and what's the date on that, Regina?
That will be June the 22nd. I'm sorry, June the 22nd.
June 22nd?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have, with a show of hands, all those in favor of a postponement of O-19-19 till June 22nd. Before we vote on that, Alderman Payon, are you voting or did you need to say something?
No, you said a show of hands.
Oh, okay. You're way ahead of everyone. Thank you.
What else?
Those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay.
The motion carried.
Thank you.
Point of information.
Yes, Alderman Finlayson.
Yes, could we go back to 011-19? I was trying to look at my history here to see when this legislation came before us, and it was back in November. We have postponed it until the 26th of May. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Well, we have one meeting on the Rules Committee between now and then, and that's tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think there's going to be adequate time to send out information for the Rules Committee.
You must have missed my fervent appeal to you as chair that we might be able to get in a quickie special meeting of the Rules Committee after I meet with Planning and Zoning.
Well, yeah, I guess I did miss that little quickie, whatever you want to call it. Okay, we'll see what we can do, but it's been postponed 4 times, so we should be clear. We'll try to do that.
Thank you.
I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, the next item, second reader, is R2220, alcoholic beverages consumption on city property, for the purpose of establishing an annual cap on fees assessed in any 1 year for the consumption of alcoholic beverages on city property for certain applicants.
Is there a motion to adopt R-22-20?
So moved.
Alderman Tierney moves it. Can I get a second before I go to you, Regina, or not? No?
I think you have to go to Regina. There's an issue on the Finance Committee, it looks like they need to look at it before we vote, I saw.
Regina, clarification, please.
Yes, the Finance Committee requested that this legislation have a public hearing, and that is why it is on the agenda. The action is second reader, but if you wanted to have a public hearing, this would be the time to schedule it.
Alderman Tierney?
Yeah, may I, if I may, could explain the legislation, because therefore it may not warrant a public hearing. Just for background, before pandemic, but there was a resolution 016-19, not anticipating dining under the stars or first Sundays. And what that resolution did was have a daily fee for alcohol consumption on city property, which is dining under the stars and first Sundays. So the Inner West Street restaurants approached, I got approached and said, this is not going to be feasible for us because these events are more than 1 day, et cetera, et cetera. And so it would be, be an astronomical cost for them. So I referred it and discussed it internally with the law office, et cetera. And what this does is cap that fee. So for beer and wine, for example, a restaurant would have to pay $100 for the year. And the thought at the time was that this fee covers police, et cetera, whatever we do for these events. so that was where the fee, and correct me if I'm wrong, Michael. And then for hard liquor, it would be 250 capped at a year, just to keep in line with the proportion that the fee was instituted. So this was in the interest for the restaurants at the time. Optimistically, we're hoping that this, that we still will have dining under the stars and First Sunday. So that's where this stands. Does that help clarify?
That's for me. Alderman Finlayson?
Yes, a question for the sponsor. Currently, it is a daily cost fee, correct? And what is that?
I believe it's $5. No, I don't have that in front of me. Hold on. I've got to open up the fee window. But it was going to equal a couple of $1,000 for a restaurant if they wanted a hard liquor license. So whatever that math works out to be.
Maybe Regina can help us, because it's the daily liquor license fee, is it not, that we're talking about?
Well, let's be clear though. This is just for an outdoor event. This is on public property. They still have a liquor license, and they still pay their liquor license fee. This is above and beyond that for an event where alcohol is served on city property.
Regina?
Okay, I just wanted to say, the form that you're speaking of is called the Consumption on City Property form, and the current fee is $50 per day. And that is the reason why this legislation is being created.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I only have 2 screens open. I couldn't get 3.
It's hard, yes.
And one of the first recommendations from the Small Business Recovery Task Force is that we create these recovery zones, the blocks of areas where we will be giving them the ability to expand outdoor seating, because they will have very little inside, and they might not even be an appetite for people to go inside. So this seems to me like it is helping on that cause. Any further discussion? Alderman Gay. Oh, sorry, Regina first. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Alderwoman Tierney made a motion, but she did not get a second. So we need someone to second.
Can we get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Alderman Gay, discussion?
Yeah, no, I just had a quick question for the sponsor in regards to some of the public comments that we've received from some of the businesses saying it'd be difficult for them to continue to operate. Can you speak to that?
Yes, absolutely. Erin wrote from Luna Blue, and she misunderstood the legislation. She assumed, she said, I didn't really read into it. She thought this legislation reiterated the $50 a day, because this was something that was talked about. And so she now understands that that we've introduced this cap. Eric Evans had a comment. And he said, this is progress, but under the circumstances with the pandemic, would we consider waiving this fee entirely? And that's not what this does. I think if this passes, and if we are in a situation where we need to waiver the fee, considering everyone's cost, we could do it at that time. I think that this is important, just so that daily fee doesn't kick in. Does that answer your question, Duan?
Thank you.
Hello?
We got a motion and a second. We're going to call a roll on this. Madam City Clerk, please call a roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley?
With your microphone.
Can you hear me? Oh, I'm sorry. Takia's working my microphone. Mayor Buckley?
Yes.
Alderman Payon?
Aye.
Alderwoman Pendell Charles?
Aye.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Aye.
Alderman Rodriguez.
Aye.
Alderman Gay.
Aye.
Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Alderman Arnett.
Aye.
And Alderwoman Tierney.
Aye.
And that
Thank
motion
you.
passes.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Yes, the next item on the agenda is R 2320 for second reader, filing of FY 2021 grant application with the Maryland Transit Administration. For the purpose of authorizing the filing of an application with the MTA of the Maryland Department of Transportation for certain grants under Federal Transit Act.
Is that a motion from Alderman Pindell Charles?
First, I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor, and yes, that's a motion.
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Alderman Gay?
Yeah, I have a quick question. So it says that of this 699, roughly basically $700,000 in capital grant for the purchase of 2 heavy-duty replacement buses. Are the buses going to be electric?
Oh, I'm stumped on that one. I don't believe so. I don't know if Director Gordon is listening in.
So that would take us back to the conversation that we had previously when we purchased, I think, like 70 police vehicles when we were still in chamber. And we mentioned that moving forward, we would highly consider, making electric vehicles.
I'll let the city manager speak to that, given our budget constraints now, but let me clarify, please, David.
Yeah, Rick Gordon is checking on, but I can tell you that our strategy is to start smaller and not start by buying the large buses as electric vehicles. They're not really feasible at this time, and so that is more our strategy. But I see Director Gordon is on, so he may want to add something to that.
Yes, that's exactly right, Mr. Gerald. In this case, these vehicles were designated for replacement a few years ago. They are part of our current fleet, and these requests were put in well in advance. The vehicles that are to be replaced have reached the end of their useful life, and we've met with MTA and discussed this. We've even provided them with the maintenance records, so they know they're at a point where they need to be replaced. With regard to electric vehicles, frankly, we're not quite there yet. And I don't think I'd want to replace a large bus at this point with an electric vehicle. I'm just not satisfied at this point that they had the level of reliability and the cost is such that we can afford to maintain an electric bus over its life.
So,
Alderman Savage was next, but
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Alderman Gay, for bringing this up. And I think I definitely share your interest in this. And from what I know, however, there's some of the problems are on the state level. I think we need to get the state's MTA to start offering grants for electric vehicles and also do some kind of, maybe we can do a cooperative buying like we do with Baltimore on our electricity, where we can piggyback off of their contract. So I have mentioned this to some of the state leaders in the MTA about they need to provide this to local jurisdictions because we do want to go in that direction. And I know our Office of Environmental Policy is looking into some of the electric vehicle opportunities that we'll have in the future.
And Alderman Gay, I think it's a great idea. I got to ride on the big electric bus at the City Dock electric vehicle event, but that big bus was only used by BG&E to go around their campus. So, I mean, we all support it if the technology was there. Alderman Gay?
I'm just not. It's disappointing that we continue to get to these points in conversation when we purchase vehicles. And the conversation always is, we like the idea, but we just aren't there yet. I really like for us to get to the point where we are there. With cost dipping, with revenue continuing to go down in transit, And then for us to go out and purchase 2 brand new vehicles that we would have to continue to pour funding in for maintenance over time is concerning, as opposed to an electric vehicle that gives you the opportunity to create savings. So, I mean, do the vehicles have to be purchased immediately? Would you be willing to look into, a number of the electric vehicles that are out? As you mentioned, Gavin, they do have those that, travel campuses with, fuel ranges up to 300 plus miles. We're a 7 square mile city. I mean, I don't think we would burn that much of the battery per day. I mean, how can we get, solid answers on bringing electric vehicles to the city?
Maybe Director Gordon, can you describe some of the routes? And
Sure. First of all, I've also rode the bus, Mayor, that you rode, the BG&E bus that was downtown. And one of the things I found out quickly with that bus was its range was only about 4 hours. So at this stage, for us to get a bus like that, we'd have to get at least 2, maybe more, in order to be able to run the bus for the number of hours a day that we currently do. Our buses tend to run 10, 12 hours a day, and they do exceed 300 miles. So that would be a little difficult to do under the current conditions. However, I would be interested in talking with Alderman Gay and the MTA, for that matter, about electric buses and pursuing those in the future.
Thank you, Alderman Savage.
Yeah, I just want to point out that Frederick, Maryland, which granted is twice as large as us, they do have a 30-foot full electric bus, and it charges in 3 to 4 hours and can run about 150 miles between charges. So it might be worth some research about how exactly they managed to get that, what kind of incentives they may have received. Because again, I do think it would be good to go in this direction.
Alderman Payon?
You do understand that the buses are basically empty most of the time, don't you?
Who are you saying that to?
Either one of you guys. I mean,
well, I think that is the point even more. Why continue to spend money on fuel for empty buses? And that's not to fault anyone in the transit department. That has nothing to do with it. That just has to do with us as a whole.
I totally agree with that.
Improving mass transit. But yeah, I think that in order to improve mass transit, you have to create, there have to be incentives. And one of the incentives in riding is that, I'm doing better by the environment, especially in green technology. I mean, we'll never see ourselves progress as a society if we continue to just push everything down into, well, maybe one day we'll get there. Even with the existing electric ports that we do have, they're underutilized because we don't put the same energy into mandating them and making sure that they're up for use and making sure that we have them across the city so that people are interested.
So I'm with you, Alderman Gay. Our future has to be some kind of mass transit that we all accept and we all use. So thank you for your efforts. Alderman Tierney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to explain why we are where we are right now, and probably why we don't have that flexibility specific to this resolution. Back in October 17th, 2019, the Department of Transportation presented this report to the City Council. And the objective of the Transit Department stated in that report is really to improve ridership and increase efficiencies of the inventory that we have. This report is required by the Maryland Transit Authority, and this report is in line with the grant application. So we can't really change the scope because it's what we've presented to the Maryland Transit Authority. And this chunk of money is very important for our transit system to run. And it is anticipated, in our budget. So we met specifically this week, the Transportation Committee, to get this on the agenda so that we can get this grant application in. Again, this is just a resolution to submit the application, but it doesn't dismiss the fact that electric vehicles should be discussed at some time. I mean, I know that in Washington, D.C., they're very prevalent, but I'm sure one of the issues is we would have to have buy-in from the Maryland Transit, and also what is their efficiency? You know, what we need the science on that. So anyway, I just wanted to say that there is some urgency in this legislation tonight.
Alderman Gay?
So, David, you mentioned that the vehicles you would consider at least downsizing so that we don't have, you know, a 50-passenger bus with, you know, 5 people on it. Is that an option? Purchasing smaller vehicles so maybe we aren't, you know, putting as much into maintenance and fuel?
Well, that's something that we could look at. What I meant is looking fleet-wide, that we had planned to start with the smaller vehicles as electric replacements rather than larger buses and some of the construction equipment. But we can certainly look at these larger buses. As Director Gordon has said, that there apparently are buses that are available. So we would need to work with the Department of Transportation to work through those issues. They pay 90% of the cost of these buses. So they have a big voice in what type of buses get purchased.
Thank you. Also, is there a motion? We've got a motion and a second on that already, Regina?
I was still...
Sorry, Alderman Pan, didn't see your hand there. I apologize. Alderman Pan?
Well, you know, if you're looking for clean transportation, then I think vouchers might be the way to go. The electric buses at this point are so much more expensive than, I mean, I'm all for electric vehicles. I think they're great. I think electric buses conceptually are great, but I just don't see that being something we can afford for quite a long time. And maybe we need to go to a voucher system. I don't know.
So this is just for a grant. Alderman Gay, Alderman Savage, I can get us together with Frederick Mayor O'Connor, and then we can sort of have some discussions on this. But we have a motion and a second. I'm going to get Madam City Clerk to call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley?
Yes.
Alderman Payon?
Aye.
Alderman Pendell Charles?
I'm sorry. Yes.
Thank you. Alderman Finlayson?
Aye.
Alderman Rodriguez?
Aye.
Alderman Gay?
No.
Okay. Alderman Savage?
Abstain.
Okay. Alderman Arnett?
Aye.
And Alderwoman Tierney?
Aye.
Yes, the motion carries.
Thank you all for letting us get that grant application in.
Thank you.
Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, the agenda has been completed.
Is there anything else for good order? Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'd just like to request that the 2 pieces of legislation dealing with the Deputy City Manager for Resilience and Sustainability, that they get referred to the Environmental Matters Committee. That's O2020 and CA 1-20.
Thank you. Anybody else? Alderman Gay?
Are we able to request, is the agenda still open for the work session next week?
Regina?
Actually, I think the Finance Committee requested that the work session be on the budget.
Oh, okay. Included in that, can we add COVID response funding with an update on that?
Sure, send me an email, please.
Thanks.
Excellent idea.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Yes, along those lines, is it going to be too late for the council to have input in the use of those funds? I learned today that there had to be a list into the county today as to how we would spend our funds.
Mr. City Manager?
Yes, it was due today. Last week, I sent out an email to everybody that asked for input for that list because we began working on it last week. We just found out last week that they wanted that. So we got some input. We've included that input into the list and it's been sent on to the county. The items that are on that list are representative of the things that we plan to do. So all of those items are not necessarily cast in stone, nor is it impossible to add things to that list, but they needed a list of things that gave them an idea of what we plan to use that money for if they in fact give us the money. So that was due today. So we worked all through the weekend to get that together. So all of you that submitted items for that, we appreciate that. There was a lot of hard work done by staff to get that together.
And please send through ideas as well, because I'm sure we try to keep it general, so I'm sure there'll be ability to kind of massage and move some ideas in there. Thank you.
Will there be an opportunity for support for local businesses, or is that already included?
So what we are trying to do is work with the county on that. So we do have some ideas on that front, but I was with Stuart Pittman for 5 hours on Saturday, and he talked about the small business loan grant program that is going to be funded through them. So all of our businesses will be eligible for that. I'll have more details for you on that. So for any business to prepare to operate in a COVID world, such as, you know, screens and thermometers or counters or you know, divisions, those things will be eligible for those grants. I think they go up to 10,000, if I remember rightly, but I will get you some more details on that. But we'll be working with them, and we'll try not to duplicate efforts, but definitely through the city office, we'll make sure that people get those.
Okay, great, thank you.
And Alderman Payon.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
All those in favor, thank you. Say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.